And we are live. Good evening, Cessnacks. I'm Fumbi from We So Nerdy, here with Katie, and we're back tonight to talk about the newest Outlander episode, Savages. We really hope that you guys have had a great weekend. How's it going, Katie?
It's going great. I mean, it's Sunday, so there's, tomorrow's Monday. That's a little damping of my spirit. But tonight was the most fantastic episode of Outlander, and you have all been following us for like the last few episodes, so you know my joy is true when I say that. So yes, I'm having a good night.
Tonight is a good night. Tonight is a good night. Absolutely. So before we get started, keep in mind, as usual, that our recap and review of Savages is now live, and it includes 3 new clips from the episode. So definitely make sure that you take a look. It's in the link right below, friends. So make sure that you take a look. And it was lovingly prepared by Katie tonight. And guys, let me tell you, it's a great review. I was reading it before we came on air, and it's just so well organized, and it just synthesizes a lot of things in a really simple way. So Katie, you are on fire this week. I mean, you always are, but this review definitely embodies your awesomeness. So good job. Good job.
Thank you. You're too sweet. You make me all blushy. Thank you.
Okay. So the congratulations are complete. Well deserved. So let us dive in. Friends, we can't even beat around the bush. Like usually we try to go systematically through the episode, and we will. But we just need to kick it off by saying, oh my God,
Murtagh is back. Yay!
I just needed to get those flailing. Like, I just need to get that flailing out. Like, I have a glass of wine. I don't usually drink when I'm here with you guys, our friends, but I definitely have a glass of wine tonight because we are celebrating, because Murtagh is back.
We are. Oh my goodness. Like, we're so excited and we're so happy. And I know all of you felt the exact same way we did when you realized who that man was that young Ian was talking to. And I have no words.
But we also have all the words.
Yeah, but we also, I have no words. But also, let me tell you in an essay why this is the best thing ever.
Because we are going to come around to it. But we just wanted to get those flails out because we're excited and we know you're excited too. But we will come back around to our speculation about what's going on with Murtagh. Okay. So tonight, overall, we see Jamie and Claire interacting with more of their Fraser's Ridge neighbors. They're trying to recruit settlers to come join them. And in the process, we see them try to mitigate the conflict that seems to surround them. So, for example, we see conflict between the new settlers and the local Cherokee. And we also see conflict between Scottish immigrant farmers as well as Governor Tryon and his tax collectors. So we see both Claire and Jamie, even in their separate storylines, really caught in the middle of these two conflicts, and we see them try to deal with that. Meanwhile, Bree has gone through the stones, y'all. She followed her mother's path, and she has gone through the stones. So as we've come to expect, right, tonight's episode provided really high highs and also really low points. And the question remains, I mean, I feel like this is a question we've been talking about from the beginning of the season, and that is, who are actually the true savages in this situation? And we're going to come around and we're going to talk about all of that tonight. So Katie, kick us off. What did you enjoy about Savages?
Okay. So I've already gotten my Murtagh flails out. There will be more of them in a bit. But I think one of my favorite things that started this episode was seeing Jamie and Claire and how they've settled into this life together. And how they even just move around each other. Like even the scene in the house when they're getting ready to go their separate ways. Claire's packing her kit. Jamie's, getting things down. He's trying to be sneaky about stealing the candlestick off the mantle. but I love their ease. I love how they've settled into their life together. And because that's all we've ever really wanted for them, is to have this, you know, lovely home life, and to see them living that out now it makes me so happy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I mean, last episode, we saw that they were trying to establish these roots, and they were having conflict with local Cherokee groups. So by the end of last week's episode, that was resolved. We saw the foundation of their home laid down. Jamie carried Claire over the threshold, and we start tonight's episode, I assume, several months into the future. We're still in 1768, but we're several months into the future. The cabin is complete, and just as you said, Katie, they're settling into their life, and they're making a pretty good life for themselves. We see Claire has established herself as a healer, both among the local Cherokee. We see that she has a close relationship with Ottaway, and she's learning additional skills from Ottaway, which was really lovely to see the interaction between those two women, and sort of in the broader community among settlers as well. Claire has established herself as a capable healer, right? And that's and that's certainly part of who Claire wants to be in this situation as well. So it is quite lovely to see them, you know, making their way little by little, settling down roots just as they wanted to.
And I love that Jamie has always been this way, but Jamie's so supportive of her. He's so supportive of, you know, well, are you sure you're going to be okay, you know, while I'm gone for these few days? And he knows she's okay, but that's still part of him. But he's just so, you know, he loves that she loves what she does. And I loved that. But building on what you said about her relationship and her friendship with Ottaway, that is one of the most beautiful scenes of this episode, I thought, was them sitting beside the creek, which a creek eventually becomes like a big focal point of the whole episode, dealing with the Cherokee. But they're having this peaceful moment where Ottaway is sharing this knowledge with Claire. And in return, you know, Claire kind of says a couple of English words that she picks up on. But it's so much more of Ottaway sharing her knowledge and her expertise with Claire. And I loved that scene so much.
I loved it too. And because there's such an ease between them, you know, like they're joking with one another. As you said, Ottaway is teaching Claire words in Cherokee, and Claire is repeating them in English. And we see that Claire even understands and has learned some Cherokee, right? Because, you know, when Ottaway asks Claire, do you have a daughter? And Claire responds that, you know, she is far away. And Ottaway responds in Cherokee that she is here. Like, my heart dropped. I was like, Ottaway, what you seen, girl? What you seen?
Yes. You know she saw something. Like, she did not mean in your heart, Claire. Like, I know
that is exactly how Claire interprets it. Like, Claire understands the Cherokee, and Claire responds in Cherokee as well, right? So it's a really nice relationship that these two have. And it was great for the episode, I think, to kick off that way. And as you said, then, you know, they go their separate ways. Claire is off to the Muellers to help Petronella deliver her baby. And then Ian and Jamie are off to Williams Creek in order to try and recruit settlers.
And all this time, like, we have them together, and I know I've been, oh my gosh, I want Jamie and Claire together. I want to see what's going on with them. But I really loved how this episode changed pace in a way. And it was like, they're very much together and they're very solid, like always, but they do have their separate, you know, responsibilities. Yeah. And they're completely fine with each other going about these separate responsibilities and still coming back to each other at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's well said. And also, guys, we have to talk about how another beloved Outlander creature has made her debut. The white sow is here. The white sow is here. And we see her on screen for the first time eating Jamie's hat.
I know. I love that. And my favorite thing is he goes, Claire, Claire, have you seen my hat? And she's like, well, where'd you have it last? He's like, if I knew that, I would have it. And I was just
calm down, Jamie.
I know.
But Ian is able to get it, so that's good. But yeah, the white sow is here, and everyone's like, she is gonna make such a great Christmas pork. Unbeknownst to you guys, the white sow is gonna be around for quite a while. So again, another one of these Outlander animals that we love. And while we're talking about animals, I just very quickly, before I forget, want to give a shout out to Rollo in tonight's episode. I love Rollo. I love the fact that Rollo was hanging out with Claire this episode. I love that Rollo wants to eat human food. I love that he's super protective of his family. So shout out to Rollo for being so ride or die yet again.
Yeah, I couldn't said it better. Rollo for life, man.
Okay, so our plan is first to talk about Claire and the Muellers and the Native American situation, and then we're going to come back around to talk about Jamie, Ian, and Murtagh. So that is our plan, and then end with talking about Bree and Roger. So that is our plan for how we're going to go through talking about savages. Okay, so Claire arrives at the Muellers' cabin, and she is able to help Petronella safely deliver her baby. And it's a really lovely moment between those three women, Claire, Petronella, as well as Frau Mueller. It's a really beautiful moment.
It is. I love them singing, Claire, kind of making, the baby burrito, and she's holding her up.
Baby burrito.
Baby burrito. It's to keep them from flailing. It's a thing. It's a thing.
I believe you.
And I love that Claire's like, if she hadn't had such a, uncomplicated birth, maybe I could have learned the whole song, because it seems like everything just went so smoothly for Petronella, which is great because, you find out that the baby's father has passed away. Yeah. And so that's obviously probably pretty traumatic of a thing to go through during your pregnancy. But I love how Claire she's able to connect with all of these different people. And so much so that Frau Mueller is like, do you have grandchildren yet? And Claire's like, no, not yet, even though she has no idea one way or the other, right?
That's true.
And she's like, well, I'll share mine with you. That was so lovely. That made my heart just kind of ache a little bit for Claire.
Oh, yes. And they even, the family even takes it a step further by honoring Claire by naming the baby Clara, which, again, is just, it's so touching. And as you said, Katie, I really like the way you put it. I mean, Claire is able to have these very real connections with each of them, right? I mean, with Mueller, you're a grandfather now. Isn't this wonderful? With young Tommy, you're an uncle now. Again, isn't this wonderful? The baby is here. Let's go see her, right? So it's a really, really joyous moment. And then even when Mueller, right, the episode begins with us seeing this doll being wrapped up in the paper. And it turns out that Mueller was at Cross Creek and bought that doll for his new grandchild, and, presents that doll, and, Petronella just loves it, and everyone's so happy. It's a really, really joyous moment. And, Claire is certainly part of that. And it's great to see. It's great to see. It's clear that as we began saying, Claire has established herself in this community as a worthwhile person, as a worthy person, as a helpful person, someone that you want to have around. And Mueller says that to her. You're welcome here anytime. So that it started off really great.
Yeah, everything started so well, but eventually things do have to take a dip. And so there's part of me that loves Rollo, like I do love Rollo. And then part of me is like, if you would have just been quiet. If you would have just not barked, they would have never known, because they were all around the baby and just so wrapped up in the baby. They could have got their water and just been gone and no one would have been the wiser. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, Rolo, really? But that brings us to the big conflict of the episode, especially for Claire and, you know, the Mueller family, is this idea of trespassing. Yes. This idea of taking something that is not theirs. And the Cherokee have stopped by their creek and are taking water. And that is a big point of conflict for Mueller, because that's his water. This is his land. And Claire kind of has to get in and diffuse this situation before it can escalate to true violence.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that there's, as you said, Katie, there's a lot about this. It's such a meaty scene, or sort of meaty conflict, and there's a lot to sort of parcel out. But the first thing that I think caught my attention about this scene is how scared the Muellers are. They are frightened. I mean, Mueller, I mean, we see it as anger, but he is afraid. Tommy, he's holding the gun next to his father, and his hand is shaking. He is afraid. Inside, Petronella and her mother are gathered around the baby, and they are afraid, and they're praying, right? So there's so much fear. And I think that's the first thing that caught my attention about the scene. They were so afraid.
They were. And there's a moment, and even Mueller, like, he looks at Claire when she's kind of in the middle, like saying, let's just put down our weapons, you know, put down your musket, let's talk. He's shaking a little bit. Like he's that scared and that like unsure of the situation. And he trusts Claire enough to lower his weapon. Just like the Cherokee on the other side of the creek trusts Claire enough to lower theirs. Yeah. And so she's acting as this kind of negotiator in a way. Yeah. And I don't think Claire ever expected that was going to be one of her duties when she was there, was kind of trying to make sure none of them ended up getting shot.
Yeah. And I think Katrina Balfe acted that scene. Well, I think Katrina Balfe is phenomenal for lots of reasons. But I thought that that scene was so well done. Because, I mean, speaking of fear, Claire is also afraid, right? Like Claire is also clearly fearful, right? But you see her, as you said, Katie, trying to mediate the situation, right? She's talking to the Muellers and she's trying to get them to put their weapons down and realize they're not, you're afraid, but they're not a threat. They're just here to take water and be on their way. And then she's talking to the Cherokee and she's like, do you remember me? This is who I am. I'm Bear Killer's wife. I'm a friend to Adewehi. I'm a healer like Adewehi. I was here to deliver a baby. Is it possible that you could go get water further down in the creek just to get to diffuse the situation for the sake of peace, right? And it's Claire, right? Just as you said, Katie, it's Mueller trusting in Claire, and it's the Cherokee on the other side recognizing Claire, that she is a woman of her word, and that's able to bring the situation way down from what it initially was.
And then I think that Claire, and like I said a minute ago, like she's able to really connect with all different people. Like she connects with Mueller and that community, and she connects with the Cherokee and through her friendship with Adewehi. And even they say, we'll go down the creek, but it's just because you're friends with Adewehi.
Yes.
Like we know that she trusts you, and so that kind of carries weight. But this whole situation with, owning the water, or this being their water, like Claire was there this time, but this is something that will happen again.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, this is something that, this is another part of the scene that really resonated with me. And it's just, I honor Team Outlander so much, because I mean, this is an entertainment show. This is an entertainment series, but they do such a good job in really conveying complex historical situations and embedding them in this entertainment story, right? So even this issue of water, this issue of land, this issue of ownership is really, really key in sort of broader understandings of like colonialism and things of that nature. So I don't want to get super academic-y and geeky, but I mean, this is part of what I teach, right? And I just think about my students. So when we talk about European colonialism of sub-Saharan Africa, my students have such a hard time wrapping their heads around the idea that Europeans and indigenous African people had completely different understandings of ownership, right? To indigenous African people, you could not own the land. What do you mean own the land? You're gonna die and the land is still gonna be here. The current generation holds the land in trust on behalf of the ancestors and on behalf of future generations. You can use the land, you can benefit from the land, but you cannot own the land. And here Europeans come and clearly believing in the ability to own property and demarcate property and sort of dictate who can come onto your property and who cannot, right? And that is a source of major conflict, certainly in the context of sub-Saharan Africa. And tonight, we see that here in this context as well. I think about when Aaron Mueller comes to Claire, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but when Aaron Mueller comes to Claire during the end of the episode, and he says they don't come for water, they come to say that this land is theirs, and he's heated, right? So again, this such a conflict that emerges from these different conceptions of ownership, and can nature be owned?
Yes, like. I love it when you talk about this stuff and you use your geeky academic language, as you said. But I mean, well, no, it's like something that you're super knowledgeable about. And if you can apply that knowledge to kind of this situation, and especially how these creators and writers are doing such a good job of being nuanced about their approach to these situations, yes, add that, because that's fantastic.
No, yes. But I mean, I really, really honor Team Outlander for that, because they didn't hit you over the head with it, right? But you definitely walked away from the episode understanding that this was a major conflict, and that, as you said, Katie, that conflict isn't over. This will happen again and again and again and again, right? But for now, Claire is there, and she's able to diffuse the situation.
Yes. She's there, she's able to get it settled, and then she goes back home, and we're able to kind of see like a couple of days in the life of Claire at Fraser's Ridge, which I thought was really nice. And it's kind of a montage scene, but you know, she's getting up, she's taking care of the animals, she's taking care of herself and Rolo, who thinks he's gonna get some food.
Yeah.
You know, even she sits down and has like a stiff drink.
Yes,
and
she does.
You know, if anyone deserves it, it is you right now. You just kick your feet up for a bit, because she's doing some work. She's knitting. Like, go on.
Yeah. No, she works really hard. And that, again, right? We said it last class, right? Living in the woods is hard, and it is also scary.
Yeah.
And I feel like we saw all those things again today, because, as you said, like Claire, without Jamie and Ian there, right, she's responsible for doing all the chores, and we see her doing those chores. And I imagine sort of when she initially gets home from the Muellers' place, like that, I would still be really rattled about that conflict situation. And you see her sort of she's exhausted. She gets off her horse and she collapses on the bed. And you're like, Claire, you are all of us. Like, take that rest. And as you said, Katie, we see the montage of her going day to day, feeding the pigs, feeding the goats, everything, so on and so forth. And then one day, about a week later, I think, about a week, maybe a week and a half later, she's caring about her chores, and then she hears a pounding on the door. Hears a pounding on the door, and it is Pastor Godfried.
Yes, and he's not bringing good news at all. And what I really love is he didn't go there to just explain to her what had happened, which is that Petronella and the baby and even Tommy had died from the measles. he goes to her because he's worried for her safety. He's like, Mueller, he's almost insane with grief. And he sort of blames you for what's happened. And do you have someplace to go?
Yeah.
And
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. I was like, and that's what stood out to me is he didn't just go to deliver the news. He went to go, I need to make sure that this person is protected.
Yeah. And actually upon, so you guys, I was telling Katie this, I try to watch the episode at least 3 times before we start doing these reviews, just so I feel like I know what I'm talking about. And like in the last time I watched, something I caught that I didn't the first couple of times was when Pastor Gottfried said that it was Frau Mueller that sent him. That she was the one that was concerned that her husband might do something bad to Claire, and she's the one who sends the pastor to come and warn Claire as well, right? So even his wife realizes that that there's some danger here. As we recall, right, the Cherokee decided that day, that they would, water their horses further down. But before they leave, they say a blessing on the water. Mueller thinks it's a curse. And then a week later, when his daughter, his granddaughter, and his son all pass away from the measles, he's like, Claire, let them poison my water, curse my water. What am I going to do about it now? Something has to be done about it.
And that's so scary to think that, because whenever they initially do it, he raises his musket again, and he's like, they're having a curse, and Claire tries to kind of say, no, it's a blessing. They do this. It's nothing bad. But again, it's that difference, that cultural difference, to where if it's something that I'm not familiar with, then it's bad, or it has bad intention.
Yeah.
And that's not what it was. But even towards the end, when Claire's talking to him one-on-one later, he's still convinced that there's no way this could have been anything else but them laying down a curse on his family.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to try and figure out how you would negotiate trying to get people to understand that it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's just their belief.
Yeah. It's exactly right. Because I'm sure it's all like, you look from the other side and you're like, actually, you look pretty superstitious too, right? It's sort of in your practices and your understanding of your faith, right? And Claire, Claire is, when Pastor Gottfried leaves, Claire is afraid, right? You see it, like she loads up her rifle, her musket, and she sits up all night long thinking this man is coming to attack her, right? And she sits up and she waits and she waits and she waits. And eventually he does come. But supposedly he comes just to make sure that she's still alive. He comes in peace, supposedly.
Yeah. And that's one thing that if someone's banging on your door that loud and it's like, I just want to talk. I just want to, you don't just want to do anything.
Yeah.
No, that scene when he comes in and sits down and talks to Claire, that scene was so painful to watch.
Yes, it was.
Because I remember I was texting you and I just kept saying, no.
Yeah, you did.
No. Because to have something so beautiful and such a wonderful friendship end in this way, it's devastating.
Yeah. Multiple friendships.
Because you don't know how this is now going to affect Claire and Jamie's friendships or relationships that they've established with the Cherokee. And so I don't know how to properly, because there's part of me that's I don't want to say it because it's, if I say it, that makes it super real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so Mueller comes and he says, I'm just here to make sure that you're okay. you know, this is what happened. They died. It was a curse. And you could tell that Claire is able to sort of like calm herself down. And she tries to, just as you said, Katie, she tries to explain to Herr Mueller that actually, you know, measles doesn't come from a curse. It comes from, it's a disease. It's not through any fault of your own, but you probably carried it with you from Cross Creek. And then, you know, Herr Mueller is like, no, it's a curse. They died so fast. It's like, well, you know, they were already weak because of the childbirth and, you know, the baby's immune system. Like, you know, she tries to explain. And Herr Mueller isn't having it. And Herr Mueller is like, besides the point, you know, what's done is done. I've already taken care of it. And he pulls out this parcel. And Claire is like, oh, I mean, how lovely that, you know, you bring this doll, your granddaughter's doll, and you bring it here. And this is something that we can talk about. And this is a place of healing. Oh, my gosh. Mm-hmm. And she opens up the paper, and it is Adewehi's scalp. Herr Mueller, believing that Adewehi is a witch, has killed her, and I don't know, did the scalping and then kill. I don't know which goes first.
Yeah.
But he has killed Adewehi. He has removed her scalp from her body, and he has wrapped it, and he has presented it to Claire, saying that there cannot be a curse if there is no witch. And he believes he has done a good deed. And Claire is scandalized.
Like, the moment when she realizes what it is, the way that her body starts shaking.
Yeah.
She's just like, her reaction is so visceral because that's not what she's expecting. And for a moment, and I always go back to the opening credits because I try and like pull things from the opening credits because they're super important. There's one scene where Claire has got that paper or that fabric, whatever it is, like clenched in her hand, that same pattern. And like, I don't know if it's from this episode or if they go buy something else from Cross Creek later, but like I noticed that pattern when the episode first started, and I was like, oh no, something bad's going to happen here, because you know, those things pop up, and sometimes they're like, yay, and sometimes they're like, oh God, no. And this was one of those things that just, it broke my heart. Yeah. And not just because, you know, it was a horrific ending to a woman who was nothing but incredible and kind and accepting, but you have all of these relationships that are sort of on this tenuous, you know, as it is, and then this one action, they're crumbled, like they're destroyed now. Like there's no fixing this.
Yeah. I mean, like Adewehi, I mean, ultimately, like remember last time she tells Claire, you must not be troubled. Death is sent from the gods. It will not be your fault. And we were like, whose death is Adewehi talking about? Come to find, Adewehi was talking about her own death. She was talking about her own death and not wanting Claire to feel any guilt or any sadness, right? So again, even Adewehi, just as you said, Katie, right? Every single interaction we've had with Adewehi has been one filled with kindness, filled with understanding, filled with patience, filled with generosity. And I just hope, I think about her, I mean, I don't know what her final moments could be like, but I do hope that she was able to find peace, even in sort of that really, really horrible situation, an ending that she did not deserve.
And see, I think what you just said is the reason I'm having such a hard time dealing with this, is her death was so horrific that I hope that she was at peace. I hope that I hope that if it was painful, that it didn't last for long, you know, because she did not deserve anything that happened to her at all. And to have this man who has no idea the kind of person she is, the kind of healer she is, what her beliefs are, and to not know that this woman is responsible for giving Claire something that helped your daughter with her birth or after her childbirth. You know, it's devastating.
Yeah. But at the same time, and like, so, you know, Katie, our friends who are watching, I'm not here to make excuses. I'm not here to make excuses for anybody, and certainly not for this sort of violence. But I think it's so complicated, right? Because we know Herr Mueller, right? We've Seen Herr Mueller. We know that he is a family man, right? And we know that he cares deeply for his family, right? That you know, you can sort of imagine this broader narrative of that them relocating from Germany here to North Carolina in order to make a new life for themselves, right? And he's a grandfather and he loves his granddaughter. He brings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just, you see what happens when you let fear, right? Just that sort of insidious fear. You see what happens when you let it take you over. And this is what it does. It corrupts a seemingly otherwise good man, right? Because I mean, ultimately what he says is that it isn't supposed to be us. We're God-fearing. We love God. It isn't supposed to be us that die of the pox. It's supposed to be them. It's supposed to be the savages that die, right? And he again, given his belief system, you know, he presumes that he's right, that he's done everything right. So why is he being punished like this? He's done everything right. But I mean, that's the story, right? This is the savagery, right? This is what happens when you let fear take over.
I think that's like perfect. Like that's, you know, like spot on. Because even Claire, when she's trying to defend him in the initial confrontation at the creek, she tells them he's a good man.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And yes, he is, you know, he loves his family. He, you know, is a God-fearing man, and he wants, you know, their health and their safety. And you're right. That's what fear does to someone. And so as we move forward, one of the things that I kind of questioned after this was, since Claire was there, since Claire was the one that diffused the situation, since Claire was the one that mentioned Ottaway, because I don't really know if this man, I don't know about his interactions with the Cherokee, or if he would have known this woman prior to Claire saying her name or them talking about her. Like, I wonder how this is going to, moving forward, affect Claire and Jamie's sort of peace that they have right now with the Cherokee.
Yeah.
Like, is that gone?
Yeah. No, I think that's a good question, right? And again, I think, you know, I said this about last episode. I think this episode was so well filmed. Just thinking again about sort of syncing up simultaneous events, because as Claire, you know, Claire tells Herr Mueller to leave, he leaves, and Claire, you know, has Ottaway's remains. She folds it in a linen napkin. She puts it in a wooden box. She puts flowers with it, and then, you know, she sets it in the fireplace to burn, right? And as we see sort of that fire, we flash to the Muellers' home, and we see that those same Cherokee warriors have returned. And this time they, in retaliation for Ottaway's death, they lay waste to the Muellers' homestead. I mean, they burn it to the ground. And as a consequence, Frau Mueller dies. She's set on fire, and she dies. And when Herr Mueller returns, he too is shot with arrows, and he dies, right? And you just see them, you know, you flash back to these Cherokee warriors, and you see them observing, right? And you even see the doll, right? The doll the little doll that was for the granddaughter is sitting in the home, and it too is burning, right? And you see the entire homestead laid to waste in retaliation. And the reason I bring this up, Katie, is because I think I think it says a lot about your question, right? Because you can imagine a situation where other settlers who live around there would say, those Muellers, they were such good people, and look what those Indians did to them. Look what they did, right? And letting that fuel additional fear and fuel additional retaliation, not fully understanding that it was in fact Mueller himself who triggered this set of events, right? Mm-hmm. So you can just imagine a situation of misunderstanding after misunderstanding, leading to more conflict, leading to more fear. And I mean, we know how the story ends. Claire knows how this story ends.
Yeah. See, I hadn't even thought about it yet in that in those terms about how everyone else is going to view it and how it's going to have this snowball effect. But you're right. And I mean, before long, because, you know, it will eventually reach Jamie and Claire, and it's going to be one of those situations where they're going to have to find themselves on a side. Yeah. That's where Jamie and Claire always end up. They always end up to where they're having to choose a side. And so, man.
Yeah. But they try to the best of their ability to be mediators. They always do. They always do. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we see that if we want to use this to transition to talking about Jamie and Ian's time in town. So when they arrive in town, their first order of business is to spread around these flyers to attract settlers. They want good Scottish men with families to come settle the land, 100 acres, and they can help to start to pay eventually the taxes on those acres when the time comes due. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in their meeting, we see that, you know, Jamie and Ian, Jamie lays out this attractive offer, 100 acres. You don't have to pay anything on it until you have your first successful harvest. And, you know, these are farmers. This should be attractive. And every single one of the farmers says, no, thank you. And they peace out. And both Jamie and Ian are so super perplexed. They're like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
I know. I love their faces, though. Like, they're like, it's 100 acres, no rent until your first yield. And then it's only like a hay penny per acre because I was sitting there reading, I was like, I don't know what that all means, but I mean, it seems like it's a decent offer. Yeah. Like, they seemed really okay with, like, we're going to get tons of people to come live on our land. And they all get up and they're like, thank you, but no.
Yeah.
Like, their faces when they all walk off are just like, did we not say it right? What happened? And I love that he goes and talks with this man. He's like, Brian, right? So my dad's name was Brian. Have you, and he started trying to make small talk with him. And he's like, so, you know, they bond over being in prison together and being at the Battle of Culloden. Yeah. And Jamie sort of gets to it. He's like, so why didn't you take my offer?
Yeah.
Well, he builds up to it, but he's like, I need to know, like, what's going on here.
And Brian lays it all out, right? Brian tells them that, look, when we came here, we had land. And when the land became profitable, Tryon's tax collectors arrived and they started charging these exorbitant taxes. When we couldn't pay it, they took our horses, you know, this constant harassment, so much so that we gave it up. We'd rather not have the land and we'd rather live in town and do wage work rather than farm because of this hassle of being overtaxed and then harassed by Tryon's people. So we've been there, done that, and no matter your offer, we're not about to go back to it.
And see, this is what gets me, is like, he says they didn't start overtaxing them until they made it profitable. And so essentially they're making these men like cultivate this land to where it's farmable, and then they tax them to where they run them off, so that these other wealthy people can come and buy the land and then put slaves on it to work the land for nothing and then just make all this money off of it. Like, that's essentially like what I got is this whole system that's in place.
Yeah. And it sucks.
And it's like, it's freaking ridiculous.
Yeah. It really is.
Because, like, if Jamie gets all this land and he makes it to where it's, you know, farmable and habitable and stuff like that, is that just going to be what's going to happen to Fraser's Ridge?
Maybe or not, potentially. But
we don't know yet because we're not there.
But Jamie knows this, right? Jamie realizes this, right? Because that's when when they're getting ready to go back to Fraser's Ridge, like this issue of taxes comes up again. And Jamie says, no, we're going to pay taxes. We're going to pay our fair share, but we won't pay anything more. And Ian's like, well, what's going to happen? And he's like, well, I can say that I will protect them from being overtaxed because the land is mine at the end of the day. These tax collectors are going to come to me, right? So again, Jamie puts himself in the middle. He puts himself in the middle of this conflict, and he designates himself as the arbiter. Like when there's an issue, the buck is going to stop with me, and I'm going to have to find some way to handle it, right? So they're getting ready to leave Williams Creek without much success. I mean, Jamie isn't even able to find like a silversmith, right? Who can take his mom's candle, and I think it's a ring for Claire, right?
I hope it is. I hope that's what he's going for.
Yeah. Since
it's Miss Graham McNeil. He's in Cross Creek, but his wife is home. His wife is home, and the door is open.
So here's the thing, Katie. When I talked to you, you were like, Graham McNeil's wife is all of us, and like, fine, maybe she is, but at the same time, I was indignant. Like, excuse me, madam. Number one, you're married. Number two, he's married. So can you step off? Like, not even the first time, but when she comes back the second time and offers him some pie, no, he doesn't want any pie. He's gonna go home to his wife and get all the pie and additional pie and more than pie. So, ma'am, can you send it on back? Like, I was indignant. Meanwhile, Katie's like,
this woman opens the door and eyes him up and down, and I'm just like, that's legit. Like, I mean, how many of you have opened up a photo of Jamie or Sam on Twitter and you're just like, looking good today, sir. It's nice. I mean, honestly, like, the woman's, who knows what Graham McNeil, how old he is, who knows anything about him. When you have someone that looks like Jamie show up on your doorstep, you're probably going to admire for just a few seconds.
Well, there's admiring for a few seconds, and then there's
offering. Yes.
Thank you. Inviting him in for a pie, and she's like, "No, I don't need your pie. My wife is a great cook. She can handle everything. So I'm gonna go home to my wife, madam."
I love you so much. Oh my goodness.
That's how I feel.
And you're right. Like, there is a difference between us, like, being appreciative of Jamie and then being like, you could come in. Like, he's not going to be home today. And you're right. There is a difference. And she...
Slide it on back, madam.
Slide it on back.
Okay. So they decide they're going to head back, but the bit for the horse is broken. So it's Wee Ian's job to get it fixed. I'm sorry. I just got really emotional.
I know.
So he takes the bit and he goes to the blacksmith and he's talking to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith has his back turned and he's begging the blacksmith to help him. The blacksmith's like, no, we're closed. Like, we're closed. And he's begging. If I don't do this, my uncle's going to have my guts for garters. Turns around. And it's Murtagh.
It is. And you're just
oh my gosh. Like, I'm sweating.
He takes the entire purse from Ian. And Ian has no idea who he is. Meanwhile, we're all freaking out at the TV.
Freaking out. Because let me tell you something. Murtagh looks good.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a crush on Mr. Murtagh. Mr. Murtagh Fitzgibbons Fraser looks good.
He does. Like, I know that he's had a hard few years, but this man, like, he has gone gray and it looks nice. His beard is trimmed. He just looks good. He has had, I mean, it's wonderful. I am looking at Murtagh going, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And you're like freaking out because you're like, Murtagh is here. And when did we, like, okay, just sort of as watchers of the show, like, from the very first, guys, our friends who are watching, you know that, like, our review for season 4, episode 1, we ended that review saying what? Give us Murtagh. Like, that was what we said from the beginning. And we said it over and over and over and over again. And here we are. And it was unexpected. Like, I was not expecting for them to go to Muellers Creek and see Murtagh here. So it was a wonderful moment. And Murtagh, the old coot, is able to take all of Ian's money to fix this bit. They fix it. And Ian puts it back on the horse. Jamie comes back around. They're heading out of town. And Ian tells Jamie, the blacksmith charged me 21 shillings. And Jamie's pissed. He's like, what do you mean 21 shillings? The thing is 6 shillings. Like, you can't overcharge. That's ridiculous.
He's like, that's the whole purse.
That's the whole purse. Jamie, with his nephew in tow, returned to the blacksmith. And Jamie is pissed. He's like, what? You can't charge, like, overcharge for this bit? What's going on? Turn around, blacksmith. You. And then, like, Murtagh knows.
He knows. He hears Jamie's voice, and he, like, his whole posture kind of changes. And in that moment, I got so emotional because Murtagh knows who's behind him. And it's just kind of like, if I turn around, please let this be the person that I think it is.
Yes, exactly. Meanwhile, like, even after Murtagh is turned around, you can tell, like, for the initial, like, for a few seconds still, Jamie's still pissed, right? Because he's not expecting to see anybody he knows in Muellers Creek, but it settles who he's looking at. And you see, like, you can imagine Jamie transporting himself, like, going back in his mind to being a young boy with his, you know what I mean? And, like, tears just well in his eyes. And you're like, this is the reunion we deserved. This is what we deserve.
I know, it was so beautiful. And Ian's sitting there and he has, like, no idea what's happening. And there's these, and then they hug, and it's just, because, like, Murtagh is the first thing that he says to Jamie is, thank the Lord.
Yes, that is what he says.
Because he's like, I never thought I'd see you again. And this for Murtagh, just to be able to know that Jamie is alive and Jamie is okay. Because even when he reaches out and grabs him, it's almost like are you really here?
Exactly.
Because he grabs his arm, like, just kind of so strongly. And it's you're here, you're real. This is real. And oh goodness. That whole thing.
It was so great. It was perfect. It was perfect. And, you know, Jamie says that he has so much to tell him. And Murtagh, I want to hear every single word. I want to hear every word of it. And, you know, for Jamie to have the chance to introduce Murtagh to his nephew, this is my godfather. And, you know, he's like, you know, I heard all, my uncles told me all about your adventures. Mm-hmm. And Murtagh is like, gives him a hard time again, right? Like, who are you calling an old coot?
Yeah.
So,
like, he shades him. He's like, he drives a hard bargain.
But, which means he drives no bargain. He just gives money. So they go off and they sit down and they have a drink, right? And they catch up. And Ian, what we know, so the last time that Jamie sees Murtagh, they're in Ardsmuir. Ardsmuir is getting ready to shut down, and the prisoners are going to be shipped off to the Americas. We see Murtagh being led out of the prison with the other prisoners, presumably off to the ships elsewhere. Lord John, you recall, Lord John Grey takes Jamie aside and sends Jamie to the Dunsaneys, right? To as a favor of sorts. But Murtagh, we don't know where Murtagh goes. Murtagh has been in the Americas 12 years. He was an indentured servant. The person who owned him was terrible, but he dies. And the wife sells him to a blacksmith, and that blacksmith teaches Murtagh the trade. So Murtagh has been in Williams Creek since as the blacksmith, right? And Jamie asks him, can you do anything with silver? And shows him the candlestick holder. Murtagh recognizes it.
He's like, this is Ellen's, right?
He knows. And then Ian says, he wants to make something for his wife. And here Murtagh is thinking that, that's good. Jamie got married again. He got married.
And you're like, you don't even know.
You don't even know, sir. So they send wee Ian off to go get another drink. And they even give him some money. Murtagh gives him the money back. And then Jamie tells him, right, that after 20 years, Claire's come back.
I love that Murtagh in that scene when he finds out that Claire is back, because he and Claire had such a wonderful friendship. We'll get to that in a minute, but they had such a wonderful friendship. But he is so happy for Jamie. He's just like, he's like, yes, how is she? And he asks about his bairn, and she's like, I have a daughter, Brianna. And it's just this beautiful scene where Murtagh is just so happy for his godson to have all of these things kind of come back to him, because he knows how much Claire meant to Jamie. Yes. He knows how much having a child meant to Jamie.
Yeah.
And Murtagh, like, his happiness in that scene for his godson is everything.
Yeah. Because Murtagh was there, right? Murtagh was there through the years where Jamie was a shell of himself, right? Like, Murtagh was there. And so he knows that the fact that Claire has come back, the fact that Jamie knows he has a daughter, the fact that the daughter is in university, right? Like, these are things that they celebrate together. And it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. And Jamie is like, Murtagh, my kinsman, look, you have to come to Fraser's Ridge with me, right? Like, this is, how many adventures have we had together? This is going to be another one of our adventures. Like, we need 10,000 acres. We need a blacksmith. You are my kinsman. I can't do this without you. We come to Fraser's Ridge with me. And Murtagh says,
I've got a lot of stuff here. We're here. I've got like business here. And you're just like, that's not the answer we were looking for. Like, this is the second time today or this past week that people have turned Jamie down. Yeah. And he's just like, what? And Murtagh is like, listen, let's come to the forge. We'll weigh out the silver, see what we can do for you. And then you're going to come with me to a meeting.
Yes.
And this is like the third time people have mentioned this meeting to Jamie.
Yes.
And let me tell you, when we get to that meeting and Murtagh goes to the front of the room, to see Murtagh as this, and he claims that there are no leaders, but he's the leader. Yeah. It was, oh my goodness, to see him with his hat, I have not been able to form sentences about this.
I wonder, so our friends who are watching, bear with me here. If I'm making too much of a stretch, tell me I'm making too much of a stretch. But guys, Murtagh seriously reminded me of Dougal in that moment. And I think specifically of Dougal in Rent, season 1, Rent, when they're going off to collect their rent in the daytime. And at the nighttime, Dougal, they meet at the pub and Dougal gets everyone riled up to collect money for Bonnie Prince Charlie, right? And he speaks about like all the British and indignities and things of that nature. That's how Murtagh reminded me of Dougal in that moment, because Murtagh was doing the same thing. He was like, they didn't take your land, they stole your land. And what they do to one of us, they do to all of, you know what I mean? And he was just talking and getting people riled up. He really reminded me of Dougal in that moment. folks, am I making a stretch? Am I going too far here?
No, I mean, well, not for me, because I can totally see it. Because he's riling them up because they're, he's getting them kind of motivated to, tonight they may be having a good meal, but trust me, our time's going to come.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see that. I see that totally. Like, I even see it in his little hat.
True.
I'm just like, oh, yes.
And Jamie realizes it. Jamie's like, okay, so this is what's going on. You're not only a regulator, you're the regulator.
I know.
And now I understand, right, why these men won't take my offer. Now I understand why you, Murtagh, won't take my offer. And even though, and like Murtagh, again, right, this can be another one of our adventures. And Murtagh is like, will you join us? And Jamie's like, I can't. I have to think about Claire. I have to think about wee Ian. And I have to think about this pledge I made to Governor Tryon that, in fact, if anything pops off, I'm gonna be the one who has to quell, whatever rebellion starts.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this conflict in which Jamie finds himself in the middle, and he says, "I'm not going to join you, but I'm not gonna stop you either."
Yeah. Because Jamie's like, I live 3 days north of here. Like, I'm not in Williams Creek all the time. I'm sort of isolated. So he can claim, ignorance of this. And I think that's what Jamie's, he's not going to interfere with Murtagh, but he's certainly not going to help again. And it kind of goes back to what he said to Claire. The false bride, maybe, whenever Claire finds the skull and or is it the one before that?
I think it's the episode before.
The episode before, but it's the one where he tells her, if I didn't have to worry about you or Ian or Fergus or Marcelly, then I would be an outlaw again.
No, you're right. It's the false bride.
And so, like, there's this moment that Jamie's like, if it was just me, I would be an outlaw again. And I can see Jamie, if it was just Jamie in North Carolina, I don't think there would be any hesitation. And yeah, absolutely, I'm here with you. But he's got Claire, he's got Ian, he's got all of these things to worry about. And so,
not to mention Fergus and Marcelly and their baby too,
Yeah, and so, he loves Murtagh and he's never going to raise a hand against him. So he's just going to say, you do you and I'll do me for now. And hopefully you'll come out to Fraser's Ridge one day.
Yeah. And Jamie arrives back at Fraser's Ridge, and it's a really nice reunion between he and Claire, because we know Claire has endured a really, really difficult week or week and a half. And, she tells Jamie, just hold me. And presumably, like a few days go by, or maybe even up to a week or more go by. And, Claire's likely told Jamie all that has happened. Claire one day is outside collecting wood and she hears whistling. And it's not like regular whistling. It's whistling of a song not of their time.
Right. And oh my gosh, when I heard Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, I got so emotional because it took me straight back to season 1.
Exactly.
And I was and when Claire turns around and she sees that it's him, I was so happy that they got to reunite this episode, because I love Murtagh and Jamie's relationship, but I love his friendship with Claire so much. And in season 1, when they were kind of on their own touring the countryside
to find Jamie
dances, guys, it still owns my heart.
Yeah. And and just as you said, Murtagh, of all, Jamie knows Claire, Claire's true identity as a traveler, and Murtagh knows, right? So you can imagine, right, that their relation, they certainly have a close relationship, so much so that Murtagh's the only person that Claire can actually sort of be her full self with. And here he is. He's come to Fraser's Ridge to see them, right? So it's wonderful. But Murtagh, what you doing? I'm also curious. Like, Murtagh, what you here to do?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because right? Because Murtagh, I don't see, given Murtagh being a regulator, I don't see him as a person to be like, yeah, well, maybe I could get 100 acres in Fraser's Ridge and just hang out hang out. I don't see that, right? So part of me is thinking maybe Murtagh, I don't want to say ulterior motive because that sounds sinister. I don't believe that Murtagh would ever do anything sinister against Jamie and Claire, but it seems to me that there is another purpose. Murtagh might have another purpose here. Time will tell.
Yeah, and see, I think you're right. Like, I don't think he'd ever do anything to harm Jamie or Claire because, I mean, they're some of his best, oldest friends. But I do wonder what he is there for, like what his purpose is. Yeah. Because I don't think it, and maybe it could be just a visit, and maybe I'm just so used to people kind of having chess pieces they're moving around. But part of me goes, Murtagh has got a lot going on. I wonder what he's up to. Not saying that it's like evil. I'm just curious.
Always curious. I am curious as well. But I mean, as I said at the beginning, there are really high highs, and this is one of them. Jamie, the debut of Murtagh, Jamie's reunion with Murtagh, Claire's reunion with Murtagh. You know, there's just so much, and that's how we end in 1768 is with this wonderful reunion. Murtagh is back. And then during this episode, we spent quite a bit of time in the 20th century in 71 with Roger looking for Claire. Roger looking for Bree.
Yeah. Yes. And Roger, God bless him. You know, he knows, like he knew the end of last episode, especially when he heard that 10 days had passed. Like, he already knew. This was just him going to confirm what he already knew. Yeah. And so he goes to Inverness, and he's, talking to the taxi company. They're like, oh, well, it was just a one-way trip out to Craignadoon. And I'm just like, they let y'all do that. No one had picked her up. No one wondered where she went afterward. Y'all are like, she's fine. She probably got picked up by somebody else. Meanwhile, the lady who's, running the inn, she finally confesses that she has this letter that she's supposed to mail like a year from now. And I've got a question for the people of Inverness, okay? Is this how they treat all their visitors? Because everyone is like, people disappear all the time. I'm like, that's because none of y'all pay attention to them. Oh my goodness. Like,
Katie, oh my God.
Like, she found her way, I'm sure. It's fine. No, y'all left a young woman in the countryside with no record of her coming back, and y'all are just like, I'm sure it's fine. These things work themselves out.
These things happen. People disappear all the time. But she leaves a note.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went off on a tangent.
No, it was a perfectly appropriate tangent. Perfectly appropriate. There is a note, and the innkeeper isn't supposed to send the note to Roger, but basically she doesn't believe Roger should be heartbroken over a flighty American, and he should find some nice Scottish girl. So maybe if he reads the note now, he'll get over it and move on. And essentially, the note is like, Roger, I found out that my parents died in a fire. And if I don't go do something and try to help them, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. And it should not surprise us, because this is the daughter of Frank Randall, historian extraordinaire. So if Roger was able to find that information, or the Reverend was able to find that information, and Fiona and then Roger were able to find out about that information, as soon as Roger called Bree and was like, your mom is alive, she's with Jamie, they're in North Carolina, right? Like, you can just imagine Bree like diving into the research and trying to find as much as possible. And when Bree presumably comes across that obituary, she's terrified, right? I can imagine this where she would be terrified. Like, I have to do something. I need to go back and warn my mom and warn Jamie. And that is what she does. And we see her approaching the stones, following the example of her mother, of the stories that she heard from her mother, from what she saw of Galis. She lays hands to the stones, and this filming of it is so beautiful because we come around, right? We come around. So we're coming around and we see her lay her hands to the stones. And by the time we come around back, she's gone.
I thought that was so beautifully filmed. I loved it. And I loved the music behind it. And it was such a perfect shot. It was. And you have to, so a couple things you have to wonder, right? First, Roger is going after her. Yeah, like, he just not change his clothes and go straight up there.
You know what I mean? Like, when the innkeeper was like, go find yourself a nice Scottish girl. And he's like, don't worry, I'm going to. He means Bree, right? He's going after Bree.
He's like, I've got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. So that's the first thing. Secondly, this is something that happens at the way beginning of the episode. We haven't touched on it yet. But Jamie's dream about Bree and her birthmark.
And see, I know that Ottaway, she, mentions to Claire, your daughter's here. And Claire, misinterprets that, but kind of.
Is it misinterpretation?
I think that Ottaway means that she's here, like in this time.
Okay. And
I think Claire says, yes, she's here in your heart. And yeah, she's also in your heart too. But yeah, she's here. Because that look on her face when she kind of looks at Claire is like, maybe you're just not ready to, it's just not time for that now. But when Jamie's like, she's got a little diamond shaped birthmark behind her left ear, that really breaks Claire a little bit too. She's like, I haven't thought about it so long.
Yeah. So you can just like, there's a reason, right? There's a reason why Ottaway he mentions this. There's a reason why Jamie has this dream, right? There's a reason we think about how Jamie is telling Murtagh about his daughter and she's in university, she doesn't have any children, not yet that we know of. There's a reason, right? And we just think of what has opened up now, because Bree has gone back. Where does she end up? And based on where she ends up, how can she, or how does she make her way to her parents?
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, oh goodness, surely. And like you said, with Frank being such a historian and her kind of even going that direction to start out her, college, her university, surely she knows where she's going once she gets out of the stones. Like, I imagine that Bree has looked into it. She has figured out where she should probably go based on Jamie's, family and the things like that. But yes, this is someone who's coming to the time where she has no money. She has no transportation. I'm really excited to see how that goes.
It's, so you guys know that I am not a book Frank fan. TV Frank grew on me in a way that book Frank didn't. But in Bree, in this journey Bree is making, I'm just talking about in the context of the books, and hopefully I'm gonna keep myself from being super spoilery. I'm gonna try to, at least, right? But this journey that Bree makes, like, through seeing Bree make this journey, it made me appreciate book Frank so much more. I mean, Book Frank was a racist. Book Frank was a misogynist. Book Frank was not, he was a cheater. He was not a nice man. But in his care for his daughter and in the way he prepares his daughter, I will leave it there. That's all I will say. But I'm interested to see if the TV show does something similar. And our friends who are watching who have read the books, I would really like to talk to you about this. So please, in comments or find me on social media, I would really, really, really like to talk to someone about this. But as I said, it's in Bree's journey that she makes that I come to appreciate Book Frank a lot more. And I'm wondering if we will see TV Frank have a similar impact. I'm going to leave it there. And hopefully I haven't been super spoilery.
I don't think you have, because I think at some point Bree's going to hear her dad, because we already heard him in the trailer. So at some point Bree is going to think about Frank, or is going to hear Frank at some point. And so I don't think what you're saying is too much of a stretch if you've read the books. I haven't read the books, so I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm like, yeah, I heard Frank in the trailer, so maybe.
Maybe. And we know next week, one of Jamie's children is for sure coming to the Ridge because Lord John Grey is coming. And
we all know how much Fumi loves Lord John Grey.
Katie, why did you really just have to?
Did you see my wink though? It was really a great wink.
You just like called me out like that, guys. You know I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. But we'll see. We'll see. I will try to the best of my ability to be fair to Lord John Grey as well as to young William. So that is what's going on next week.
And I'm gonna have to try and make myself be open to William, because I can already feel myself being very like, I don't know. And I need to be more open, I guess, as opposed to, interloper.
Yeah. But that's not, I mean, that's his mother's, that's not his fault.
I know. And that's why I need to fix it.
I know.
I'm recognizing my shortcoming.
Fair enough. But we will talk about that next week. Katie, that is all I have. How about you?
Yes, that's all I've got for tonight, because Murtagh is back and everything is wonderful for now.
Cheers. Cheers. Murtagh is back.
Cheers. Murtagh is back.
So guys, thank you so much for watching. I mean, I thought tonight's episode was fantastic. I thought it was really well done. As I said, I thought a lot of the writing was well done, and a lot of the historical moments were embodied really well in this episode. And I'm looking forward to more. I mean, this is episode 5, so we have 8 more episodes to go. That's positive. That's something to look forward to. Yeah. Happy December, guys. Welcome to the month of December, last month of 2018. I hope that it's a good one for you. Happy holidays to all those who celebrate. Have a great week, and we will see you back next week. Don't forget to read our review.
Bye. Thank you, guys.